Good afternoon, everybody. This is Karen Lee Harrington with the Maine Health Aid Organization, and it is 1 o'clock. And given everybody's schedules are crazy busy, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We may hear a few folks joining, but we do have a number of people on the line. So welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your crazy days to spend with us to learn about some of the recent changes to our data submission rules. So just a couple of housekeeping things. Please mute your line. Don't put us on hold. Otherwise, we'll all be listening to music. And there is, I believe, Kate, a chat feature that we want folks to feel free to use. And we will address as many questions as possible at the end of today's webinar. And for those that we can't answer, we will definitely follow up in writing to the group. So with that said, I do have a couple of folks. We won't do introductions because there are just so many people on the phone, but I want you to know that with me on my team is our compliance officer. I think many of you know Philippe, as well as Kate Mullins with our consultant, HSRI. So I'm going to just kick things off by reviewing what we're going to go over today, and then I'll turn things over to Kate, and Phil will also be available to answer questions that you might have. So that's the welcome. We're going to talk through Chapter 243 update. We'll talk about the annual update process, which includes some registration updates, some validation rule additions and updates, and then we'll talk about the implementation timeline. And hopefully we'll get this all buttoned up within the next half hour. The goal, again, review Chapter 243, review the upcoming registration process, validations, and the overrides that need to be reset, and then the implementation timeline. So again, thank you. If you have questions as we go through, use the chat feature, and again, we'll answer as many questions as we can at the end. All right, so with that, Kate, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Courtney. All right, so I know most of you have received communications from MHDO about these changes to Chapter 243, but we wanted to take some time to review them with the group and talk about the actual implementation of these changes over the next 6 months. So here's just a brief summary of what has changed in the Chapter 243 layout. There are some new definitions. Code list reference information has been updated. There are a few updates to mapping information, and there are some additional fields. And these changes will go into effect with the submission of your January 2019 data, which is due by January 28th, 2019. And the portal will be available for the submission of those data no sooner than February 6th of 2019. Feels like a long way off, but we all know it's a year before we know it. So I'm going to start by just reviewing the new definitions that have been added to the Chapter 243 document, and this will help us talk through some of the updated fields. So the first one is the HICN, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with some of these terms, but these are the definitions that have been added to Chapter 243. The HICN means Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services Health Insurance Claim Number, and the MBI means the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services Medicare Beneficiary Identifier. So this specifically calling out the definitions for these two identifiers that will be referred to in some of the new elements. And again, I'm sure those of you impacted by some of these changes at the federal level are familiar with this information, but we just want to provide it in one place. So the majority of the Chapter 243 changes are a result of the transition occurring at the federal level with Medicare. And basically the goal of this transition is to remove the Social Security numbers from all Medicare cards by April 2019. The new MBI will replace the SSN-based HICN on these new cards for all the transactions that are used for billing, eligibility status, and claim status. We've provided a couple of links here to the CMS information with all of the details about the transition. And again, the timeline for this that the federal government has laid out is that the transition would begin no earlier than April 1st, 2018, and run through December 31st of 2019. And so after the transition period ends, as of January 1st, 2020, MBIs will be required with very few exceptions on claims previously containing the HICN. And what does that mean for Chapter 243? So this is just a table that explains how that transition translates into the new Chapter 243 layout. The HICN will be submitted or can be submitted from as of the February 2019 through the end of 2019, and the MBI can be used during that time as well. Basically, during this transition period in 2019, the submitter must send either the HICN or the MBI, and that means both fields cannot be blank, and we'll be making adjustments to validation rules to look for that. And as of January 2020, all files will be expecting that the MBI will be provided and the HICN will be phased out. So in addition to the HICN and the MBI related fields, there are some additional identifying location information that have been added. And the goal of these additions is to continue to enhance MHDO's ability to create a master patient index. So we have added the member address information to the eligibility file. So line 1 and line 2, as well as a country code. In the eligibility file, you also see the subscriber HICN and MBI numbers. This reference included the field descriptions here in today's slide. And again, it just states exactly when it is expected that these fields will be populated and required. We've also added a field for the member HICN and the member MBI. Again, we'll include some additional details here about when this will be required, and in addition to who actually needs to submit these, but also again some details about the actual transition dates and the requirement of the MBI starting in January 2020. Again, we've added in the claims files for both medical, pharmacy, and dental claim files. We've added these additional member address fields, so line 1, 2, and the country code. And then one final change is that in the pharmacy claim file, we previously had a country name field, and now that's been changed to a country code field that will be validated against paylist. So that concludes the portion about any field level changes. As those of you who have been working with us for a number of years know we use this opportunity at the beginning of every calendar year to ask you all to go into the portal and update some of your registration information. This is a requirement of Chapter 343. So we ask you during the month of February 2019, we'll ask you to just go in, review some information about the business that your organization does, and also review all of your contacts and users within the portal to ensure that we are communicating with the appropriate people regarding your submission. At the same time, we also perform our annual validation override reset. So this is a time when we take all the existing profile and exemption level overrides and reset them. They essentially will expire as of February 1st, 2019, and submissions that occur after this reset, so typically for most of you that'll mean your January 2019 data, will be evaluated against all the validation rules, and new profile and exemption level overrides will need to be requested as needed. Again, this is just sort of the time for us to reset, revisit any issues that may be occurring and develop new action plans if needed. The final thing that we typically perform at the same time is implement any validation changes as part of this sort of annual update that we do. As I mentioned, going through the Chapter 243 changes, there will certainly be some changes as a result of those additional fields, and we're working on developing that list as well as modifications to existing rules that may address repeat data quality concerns or issues that submitters have had. So this is when we'll be taking the time to evaluate all of that and make some recommendations for changes. So we've already gone over the fact that the Chapter 243 changes will be implemented and effective with the submission of your January 2019 data. Because we have there are changes to Chapter 243, we are going to be offering a payer testing period with that new format and all of the validation changes. So as I mentioned, the first sort of step in this implementation timeline is this meeting and sharing the Chapter 243 changes, and then the next step will be distributing all of the proposed validation rule changes so that you all can get a heads up on that and provide any input. We'll then, in the early part of October, be sending out instructions regarding the testing period so you understand what the expectations are for that. And then we'll be having a month-long testing period where you're from the middle of October through the middle of November, where you'll be expected to submit a test file in the new Chapter 243 format to ensure that you've gotten that done correctly, and then also to see any of the results of the validation changes. And then finally, the next step will be just to, once everybody works through the testing period and understands any changes that may need to be made ahead of the production change, we'll be making sure everybody is clear about what the instructions are for annual updates to the registration information, the override reset, et cetera. And then, as we have done in the past, while we conduct this transition in the production system, we will put a temporary hold on any files that are submitted from February 1st through February 5th. You'll be able to submit them, you'll be able to continue to log into the portal, but we will not validate and process your file until we deploy the Chapter 243 and validation rule changes on February 6th. And that's the time when the annual override resets will happen. We'll process anything that came in a 4-day window, and you'll be able to just continue on with your January submission after February 6th. And as I mentioned, during the month of February, we'll be asking you to complete your annual registration information update. I think, as I said, for those of you that have been working with us for a number of years, this is all familiar in terms of the process that we've gone through on an annual basis. Again, just want to provide the reminder about resources available to you. If you have any questions about what we've gone through today, or as you begin to think about the implementation of these changes, our help desk is always available to answer technical questions related to the portal or your results. And MHDO and BLEAP are always available to answer any compliance-related issues as well. All right, so I'm going to check for some questions. I know we saw a few come in here, and I believe one that we always get, and I saw just about this presentation, we have been recording it, and we'll be making that available in addition to the slides. They'll be added to the payer portion of the MHDO website and available there. And I'm just going to pull up any other questions, and I guess Karen Lee or Phil, if there's anything else you want to add to what I said while I pull that up.
Hey, this is Srini from CVS CareMark. Are we going to receive a new DSG with these changes, or already the DSG available on the portal?
Hi, Sri. The Chapter 243 updated document is available on the MHDO website under the rules and statutes portion of the website. But yes, it is available. It's posted on the MHDO website.
Okay, we'll check. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then I saw another question just about the timing of the testing period. And I'll just state, we have an official testing period that it's a month long from October through November. And we strongly encourage folks to get filed in during that period to ensure that they're well prepared for the implementation in February. But the test site will remain open and available for continued testing up until that implementation date in February. So you're free to continue to work there, and as I said, but we strongly encourage you to get something in during that month-long testing period beginning in October. Any other questions? That was all through the chat feature. All right, I just saw one more question about where to find the latest version of Chapter 243. So I'm going to pull my screen back up and show you where to locate that on the MHDO website. Okay, so we're here on the MHDO website homepage. On the left-hand navigation, under Administrative, there's a link called Rules and Statutes. Click on that, it'll give you everything under this rule for MHDO, and if you click on Chapter 243, it'll just directly download the latest version. It has officially been adopted, so that's what you're going to receive when you download here. If you ever want to just refer back to previous versions and the process that got us here, the information is posted at the bottom. It shows, what the initial proposal was, some of the comments and responses received, and then the final version. And then once we do actually go ahead and get the test site up and running, the file layout information will be in that test site, and then when we move it to production, all of this will be available through the portal as well. All right, looks like that's the end of the questions for now. Any final words?
All right. Well,
thank you.
Hearing none, thanks, Kate. Thank you, everybody. If you do have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us, and hope you all enjoy the rest of the summer. Thanks, everybody.